I'll give everybody a few minutes to hop in. Are we ready to get started? Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Chief Chat. Today, we're digging into the latest and greatest announcement about Ember. Grummz is going to share some behind-the-scenes details on the what, the why, the how, and maybe even the when. So let's sit back, relax, and let's chat with the Chief. Take it away, Grummz.
Hey, thank you, Ray. Way to trap me in the corner and maybe the when. We have not done when in the last three Chief Chats. But there you go. That's good. Hey, why don't we start off with the video? I know that I keep playing this, and some of you have been here on the other Chief Chats. I really appreciate it. And some of you are new for this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and cue up the video one more time. I'm sure nobody will mind. All right. How many of you have not seen the video? Everyone's seen the video, right? Pretty sure. Whisper, you've seen the video before. How many have not? Who here has not seen the video? You guys. All right. How many of you have been here for one of the other Chief Chats this weekend? A lot of you. Maybe the better question is, who hasn't been here in a Chief Chat yet this weekend? Oh, okay. Draco, Anita, Sakaji? Am I pronouncing that right? You know how it works here. If I mispronounce your name, it sticks forever. The Munkis? Well, thanks for returning, everyone. So, what you're looking at on screen, I'll go through the regular spiel again. Maybe I'll mix it up a little bit, talk about some other stuff because this is the fourth presentation and we've had record attendance for the last three. It's been fantastic. And I'm looking forward to doing this presentation and also, maybe, well, I don't know. Let's just get into it. First, this is a very familiar place. We've got the waving grass, we've got the waves on the ocean, we have the cool island song. No, me, that's South Park. We have the tiki huts. This should look very, very familiar to you. I pan around here. And let's hope that my controller works this time because it was disconnecting randomly in Windows. I blame Windows 11. I have an Xbox Elite original controller. It's getting pretty old. And it is definitely fritzing out on me again. All right. I might have to switch over to mouse. I think my controller died. It worked for like a little while and started disconnecting and then it just died on me. Okay. I have no use for your controller. We're gonna go mouse. Let me slow it down. All right. So this should look very, very familiar. And some people said, it looks like Firefall. Well, guess what? It is Firefall, but it's not running in the Firefall engine, and it's not running in Unreal Engine, and it's not running in Godot, and it's not running in the Unity engine. So what engine is it running in? This is the Kaiju engine, shortly to be renamed. I'll go over that point real quick. There is another kaiju engine, and the original creator of that, who's been working on it for like 10 years, joined our chat earlier today, and his name is Brent Ferris, and he is a longtime game dev and really great guy. And he pointed out that he had created this engine before. So we are going to rename our engine and we need something snazzy, something that is related to Ember, preferably. I love kaiju movies. I love even Ultraman back in the day. So basically, we're going to have a contest to name the engine. The details will be a little bit later because we just found out about this today, basically, today and yesterday. So the details will be posted shortly by the community team, and you guys will get to name whatever engine this ends up to be. So I know the burning question is, why did we do this? Why did we decide to write our own engine? Well, first of all, I think the primary answer is the one that's been bothering everyone for a very long time, and that is speed. It's taken too damn long, and it's basically to the point where we need an accelerant. We're only a team of volunteers, and that's been great. The volunteers have been awesome. The talent is awesome, but there's only so much time in the day people can give, or even during the week. So it's been hit or miss for availability, and the features tend to dribble out, and that was not going to work for us. We're not, so we had to come up with a solution. And so I started looking at using artificial intelligence, AI, right, and to do coding because about last November it got really, really good. I've been following AI coding for a long time, and it's never been that helpful to me. A function here, a function there. We look something up for Unreal, but it never really was able to do a decent amount of sophisticated code until when Opus dropped in November. And then everything changed. And I realized for the first time that this might be possible. So I made a big bet in January, February. I said, let's give this a try. Let's see if it can actually, build a little 3D engine. And it did. And I was really encouraged by the results. And I said, I wonder if it can do more. I wonder if we can carry this all the way to a production quality engine for games, commercially released games. And that's when I went quiet. That's when I stopped talking to you guys. That's when I was really heads deep and I was working night and day just on prototypes to see and answer the question, will this help us? And the answer is yes, because AI has turned out to become better and better over the months. And that was the other bet I made. The other bet I made was that AI improvements will be so good and so fast that whatever trouble I get into with the engine and the engine code, future AI will be able to solve. And future AI won't be a year away, won't be 2 years away. It'll be really, really soon. And boy, howdy, it's a lot faster than I ever imagined because we went from having a model drop, coding agent drop every 6 months to every 3 to every 1. And now it's almost a bi-weekly event between open source and the top three or four foundational models out there. And we have run into situations where, an older AI could not solve a problem, could not get us past an issue. And then all I had to do was wait just, a month, and then another AI would come along and solve the issue. So that's not a linear curve, guys. If you look at how fast things have been dropping, we are on an exponential curve of improvement, and I do not see this slowing down. And even if it stopped tomorrow, the level of AI we have now is completely sufficient to do this engine. And I can say that because I've proven it, right? So how do you prove it? I was really worried. I was like, I showed you some screenshots of like clouds. I showed you some screenshots of a planet, and I kind of teased it out. But but I knew that I couldn't come to you guys with a box and some lights and say, look, we've got a 3D engine. Isn't this cool? I mean, you guys would have been very, very angry. So I knew that we had to really, really prove this as a technology. And I looked around and I said, oh, what's a good way to do this? And I realized that, hey, we're the spiritual successor to Firefall. If we can get Firefall and all of its complex technologies, because it was actually a very complicated renderer using cutting edge tech of the time, including id Tech megatextures, written by the ex-id programmer who I hired to do it. And I said, if it could do that, if we can do everything that Firefall does, everything in the renderer, then we can do this game. And so I set it out as a challenge to just take a copy off Steam, just like you guys have, and have AI reverse the data formats and load the entire New Eden and Surtau zones into the engine. And that's where we are today. And this is the result. So you can see that we're here in Copa. And everything you see is straight from the game. And then we also added our own models. There's our Happy Thumper chortling away. And he does clip a little on the animations. That's because I went to grab animations and I didn't realize I had grabbed the older ones by mistake. And so he's playing the older animations that had some targeting issues. So that's why he's clipping that. It's not the engine. I actually went into it. Uh, the animation engine is actually open source engine called Oz, written by another veteran game developer, and it's very fast, very performant, and it was a good selection for this. And so we actually incorporated that here. We also incorporated Jolt Physics, and Jolt Physics is used by AAA games. I think, is it Horizons that uses it? I can't remember. But that's in here too. But the renderer is all of our code. This is not a reverse engineered Firefall engine. This is much more modern. Firefall was written in the DX9 days, DirectX 9. And what are we on now? 12. And because I wanted to be potentially multi-platform, I chose Vulkan as the graphics API we're going to use for this. And I decided to build a modern renderer. Uh, for those of you who are technical, it is a VisBuffer forward plus clustered lighting engine with meshlets. Meshlets are it's kind of like the precursor to Nanite. It's the foundation of Nanite. It means that you take, all of your polygons and you split them up into little work groups and tasks on the GPU. And that's something that you really didn't have during the Firefall era. And so we did that, and we also made sure that we're supporting what's called physically based materials, just like Unreal does. Firefall was done in the days where you didn't have that. And all you had was what was called a specularity model, where it's just sort of like you had a diffuse color, a specular color. And what that means is you couldn't do stuff like reflective metal, right? And that wasn't going to work in a mech game. So I decided to do a PBR based renderer, support all the bells and whistles, and we added that. It has graphical improvements that Firefall never dreamed of, like contact shadows, which allows us to do really tiny little shadows in the plants and stuff like that, like right underneath that. And we have better ambient occlusion, and we have even better emissive lighting. And those are all improvements we made to it. So this actually looks better than the Firefall engine could render it. The one thing that doesn't look better is the textures. These are low-res textures because original Firefall didn't ship with the high-res textures. Those were streamed from Amazon's CDN, their content delivery network. So that's what happened. And when Firefall shut down, those servers went offline. And so you couldn't get those textures anymore. So unfortunately, we are about 2 levels of resolution down from the original Firefall resolution. And that is what's accounting for the blurry look. Now, Firefall also had lower polygon counts. The engine's capable of much more. Obviously, it can do high-res textures, no problem. And because of the meshlet technology, that allows you to push more polygons. So it can actually do higher res terrain and structures and characters than this. But that's not necessarily where we're going, because I think we live in an age where hardware is really expensive, and you want to make sure your game can run well. So I would like this game to run natively at 1080p on a Steam machine at no less than 30 frames per second with no dynamic res at all. You can, right now, if you use Unreal and you try to run on a Steam machine, a lot of people are having issues and they have to use dynamic res, which means that the screen is rendered at 80% or so and upscale to the full 1080p. And I didn't want to do that. The other reason I don't want to go super high poly is because I don't think the game needs it. I think that we like the Firefall art style. We want a stylized art style to stand out from the crowd because everyone's chasing photorealism now, and I think that just makes every game look the same. And I didn't want that at all. So I think that that's going to benefit us for getting frame rate to where we want it to be on even slower hardware like the Steam machine. And that means that potentially Steam Deck, although I think that would require upscaling for sure. That's a much slower machine than the Steam machine. But you can see that we have all of this stuff, and you are going to see some pop in. That's not. That's just the way Firefall was. Firefall hid this with fog. We're using the same draw distances as Firefall for the structures, but we pushed the fog back because I wanted you to see all the way out to the horizon, kind of like Crimson Desert. So we use a technique called reverse Z on the frustum, which a lot of large-scale open world games do now, which lets you push the drawing all the way out to the background. Neo says, can you run a pass on the older textures to get better clarity? Well, interestingly enough, I considered that. But the problem is we can't just AI upscale these textures because in a traditional game, each of these would be a separate object, right? This piece of coral, this rock, they would all just be this one big object with one very clear texture map to point to. And then you could just upscale that texture, no problem, and put it on there. The problem is we use InTech 5 style megatextures. And what does that mean? That means it takes something like this rock and it just chops it up into polygon soup. Basically, this might be three different sections, and the way it's stitched together on this rock is going to be different from the way it's stitched together on the same rock in another location, because it's not dividing by mesh, it's dividing by the world. The way megatexture works is instead of a unique texture map per object, and let me know if I'm getting too technical, it's basically streaming a world-sized texture atlas as you move around the world that's unique textures for every single object. And that gives you a lot of power. InTech 5 lets you have unique textures on everything. But at the same time, you get this issue where one object here is going to have seams in one place and the same rock elsewhere will have seams in another. So you can't simply upscale it per object. Now, maybe you could run it on the entire atlas, but I don't know any upscaler that's going to take a gigantic multi-gigabyte image file and that's already chopped up into sectors and then upres that where you won't get severe seams or lines that are very obvious. So that's one reason I didn't opt to upscale the textures. I didn't even try. Maybe there's a way to do it, but I think it would result in a lot of problems. So those are the two limitations right now. And they're really limitations of, what we inherited from the existing Steam copy of Firefall. All right. So uh, let's see. So let's go down memory lane here, okay? So I just like coming here and just revisiting locations that haven't been seen in like 10 years, right? This really brought back so many memories. When I got the zones finally loading with textures and everything, it brought a tear to my eye. It was a very emotional moment. And from what everyone that's talked to me about it has said that it has been an emotional moment for them too. If you spent a lot of time in Firefall, you know what I mean. Firefall did something unique back in the day. It actually had emissive textures that would light the surrounding area. You see these glowing blue lamps? You see how they actually cast light on the roof next to it and the ceiling above it? That is something that would take global illumination today, right? Or something like Lumen in Unreal Engine, which are very expensive. Firefall had a very cheap technique for doing this at the sacrifice of some visual quality, you can get this at a very high, performant frame rate. And so we adopted that here. We actually improved it. Yeah, we have a little more distance, we have a little more resolution, and we have a super high quality mode that lets us do what's called one bounce, which lets us reflect off of one surface to sort of calculate the total color and light. So we've got that running now. And I think it adds to it because there's so many glowing things in Firefall and there's so many glowing things in Ember. I think that's something that we wanted to have, and I'm glad that we found a cheap way to do it, because again, I want to make sure that we're performant on even something like the Steam machine. 30 FPS on the Steam machine without dynamic upscaling. And here we go. This was my favorite hangout area in Copa. It was a lot of people's favorite hangout area in Copa because we had the Tiki Towers here, the Tiki Torch, the dunce hat for the achievement was up there, and it was just, I don't know, it felt magical. It felt absolutely magical at the time. Now we have absolutely everything loading in here. So if I go in here, you'll see an interior, and we have every dungeon, every interior that was in the game is in here too. And you can see I have no other real lights here. All the lighting's being carried by the emissives here. So that's pretty cool. And look at how much glowing stuff was in Firefall. Look at how much glowing stuff. I love that look. It's kind of like we used to call it the Tron look in development. And so we definitely want to bring that into Ember as well. So by proving that we could do everything Firefall does in our engine, and I think that means that Ember is good to go. And the thing is, it bought us so much speed. This is 5 months of work with AI to do this entire engine. Oh, we got battle frames here. Memories. And over 1.3 million lines of code. And we did pare it down to prune it down to about 300 lines of code because AI likes to be very verbose. Plus, we did a lot of experiments. I tried different ways to approach the renderer. We've gone through 2 refactors where you completely reorganize the code. And normally that would be a nightmare. Anytime you say to a game team, we're going to refactor the code, everyone just groans because that's like a 6 month process every time you do it. But with AI, it literally only took a couple weeks. So that's a huge, huge speed advantage. And if you measure by lines of code, and if you measure by number of features, we are not just one, but 2 orders of magnitude faster. Well, what does that mean? That means we're not just 10 times faster. That means we're almost 100 times faster, about 93% times faster by last count, which is almost 8,000%, right? It's huge. And that was very encouraging because if you look at our code for the original Unreal version, we had about 15,000 lines of C++, and we had about 65,000 lines of blueprints. And now we're generating 1.3 million in the same time frame, 300,000 if you just count what we have. And that's still 2 orders of magnitude faster. It's really just a dramatic improvement. And feature count wise, too, we're dropping features that used to take us months in just days. It's really astounding what we can do with coding agents these days. And no one has really pushed it this far. I've seen other people do AI 3D engines on X. I follow a lot of professional render programmers. And by the way, they're all using AI. The X leads of Unity, the some X Unreal engineers, they're all using AI. And there's issues with it. They look at it and go, well, the code isn't doing this right and that right, but they're not going in and hand fixing it. They're just saying, this is stupid, go redo it. And the AI redoes it because it's so much faster for it to do it that way. And so I'm not a professional render engineer. I'm a general gameplay programmer, but I have a lot of knowledge about engines. I have a lot of knowledge about game programming, and I'm able to use that to produce a product like this. And and no one has pushed it this far. They all have their own test engines running on 3JS on the web, or they are doing small test engines, on Windows. But they're loading test scenes. They're loading these small scenes like a courtyard or a cafe, and these are standard graphics test levels, but they don't really push the limits, and they don't prove that you can do anything bigger. So no one else has really done this yet. And that's why the post has attracted so much attention on X. When I posted the video and I told people what we're doing, there's over 300,000 views on that now. Followers are shooting through the roof. It's really crazy because people are recognizing that, hey, AI might actually be ready and getting better faster than anyone has expected. So that's been really encouraging. I didn't really realize that until this weekend. I just thought I was toiling away trying to just get Firefall loaded and running. And then I looked around and realized nobody else had done this yet. So that was really encouraging. And it got a lot of attention and a lot of people interested in the game. So that's good for us too. Do you remember this area? We had this during the playable announcement demo, the gameplay walkthrough. This is the spawning pool area. I'm sure you guys have thumped here or had combat here. I think we had flying creatures here, right? What do we call them? Not piranhas. Oh, hey, look at that. We just hit 300,000. Thanks, Giga. Yeah, Neo, if I showed you the atlas, you'd be confused because it's not like related textures are next to each other either. They could be split far apart. It's crazy, and it made reverse engineering the format a nightmare. So one thing I did was I created web viewers to load individual objects. These are not individual objects; these are actually mega chunks. But there are some individual objects, and I started with that, and then I created a viewer for it. And I also created a terrain viewer and a mega chunk viewer that parses all of this. And that was a fast way to decode everything that was coming in versus having to do it in the engine, which would be a slower iterative process. Um, and that's going to be made open source because I want to help out projects like game preservation. I want to help out projects like the Melting Wars. And I think it would be really useful to them to have the actual data formats for all this stuff because then they can do what they like, what they like with it. The other advantage of using a AI engine is that I wrote it with AI first in mind. And that means that the AI can completely control this. It can completely understand the data formats, which are in a text friendly AI format. It can iterate on its own. It can control the game on its own. It can see the game on its own. And that allows us to implement features much faster because I don't have to, it's almost like it's got its own custom harness for it. I don't have to go out and use MCP, which is a protocol for AI to talk to programs. It's just got a native connection to the engine. And so it's actually running next to me right now. I can have it do things while I'm going around. I can have it take screenshots. I can have it remember things. I can have it work on things, and it's all very iterative and very fast. Unreal, I was actually talking to Brent because he's been, the guy who wrote the original Kaiju engine, not related to us. We just used the name and we had no idea. He was telling me that on his teams where he was doing larger size projects, it was taking an hour to an hour and a half to do the compile for all of their custom C and in Unreal. And we were, if we did a fresh build from source, it takes us over 30 minutes to compile Unreal. But with the approach we have of just using pure C and what's called a Unity build and the AI in the loop, we've got that down to 36 seconds. So if we make a change to the engine and we have to do some sort of major refactor and recompile the whole thing, we don't have to wait an hour and a half or 30 or even 30 minutes to get it done. And that lets us fix bugs and iterate a lot faster. I also have to say that it's been a joy to work with a code base that or at least the AI knows, because in Unreal, you have a really, really big machine, big engine. You have a really complex piece of software, and nobody knows how it really works, right? Uh, you have generalists, but most game teams, they're divided into these super, super specialized, divisions. One guy knows the animation blueprint system really well. One guy knows the world partition system really well. The other guy knows HLODs really, really well. And they all have to know the problems that Unreal has with those systems because every engine has its own unique issues. Uh, and there's so many systems in Unreal that we were kind of struggling with that because we'd be like, well, we've never used this system before. We have to learn it because we're not a big AAA team. We don't have an expert on staff. And a YouTube video is great as a start, but it's kind of useless for when you're doing complicated production stuff, like a fully streaming open world, for example. Or if you have a problem with the renderer, or if you want to know why something's not working, there's just really no way to find out how to fix that. So we end up with these roadblocks. Like you remember our swarmer animation where we had thousands of particle um, swarmers running around that work great on NVIDIA cards, absolutely fail on AMD. And there was no information out there on how to fix that. And we tried asking Unreal, we tried asking AMD, and they're like, we don't know either. And then because we're not a big AAA company, to get them to respond was like pulling teeth. Months would go by. And ultimately, we had to abandon that, right? Because it's like, well, we can't move forward. Well, when we have our own engine and we're writing everything ourselves and we're using these techniques, AI can solve that for us. So and we know the engines. Like, okay, this isn't working on AMD. We're on Vulkan. Here's what we're doing. And you can talk the AI through it, and it will actually help you figure out the problem in a way that can't really be done with the Unreal Engine, not as easily, right? So That is the hidden cost of Unreal. And I've been talking to friends on AAA teams on major titles that are shipping this year, and they tell me that Unreal has a lot of great features, but unless you have a connection with the company, you're going to get stuck. You're not going to get Lumen to work properly for you. You're not going to get Megalights working properly for you. And you're going to need someone on the inside. So their recommendation is, hey, you're an indie game, you're using Unreal, make your game simpler, make your game simpler. Well, it's like, well, there's only so simple I can go because Firefall and being a spiritual successor of Firefall means we have to do what Firefall does. And so, that was another issue. So I'm happy to say that the speed of iterating on features has been phenomenal. Yeah, exactly, Neo. Mass entity system, zero information. Well, I have an entity system on here because we're actually running fully client server right now. I have an entity system on here that I call Zero Page, and Zero Page is our entity system. It's a small piece of data that every networked object shares, and it's synchronized automatically between client and server. And I don't need documentations because I spec'd it out and AI wrote it, right? So that is something that is an advantage. And if I ever need documentation, I can just have AI do a couple of beautiful web pages complete with illustrations on it. And I've done this. I said, hey, can you explain? And you'll see this when I release the Firefall Doodad Viewer open source. It will actually have beautiful web pages that explain how the entire Firefall format works. Yeah, we were running into that too, Neo. You and I. Hidden optimization settings. It was crazy. It was very difficult to work with the Unreal Engine. And I really think that the days of massive engines are coming to an end. I think that for most games, if you're not a AAA studio, you're probably better off writing your own little engine to do things. And this is not a little engine, but even a bigger engine. Little chosen creepiness here. All right. So at this point of the demo, I usually ask, where do you guys want to go? But I'll reserve that question for the new people to the stream. What do you want to see in Firefall? What memory do you want to revisit? There's a lot of places here. I'm just going to roam while you decide. Thumping. Well, we're not doing thumping yet. Oh, Baneclaw. Where was Baneclaw? It was by the northern melding wall, but they pushed the melding back. You see this chosen area? That's all new. So I don't know if the Baneclaw area is still here, or if they moved it, or I wouldn't know where to go. But it's around here somewhere. We are in the northern part of the map. So it was really funny. Someone in chat the other day said, hey, because I didn't tell people what the video was about. They said, hey, what is this video? It just looks like Firefall, but with better graphics. And I was like, oh, that made me happy because this is a modern engine. You should see some difference from the old Firefall engine, even though we're using lower res textures and that sort of stuff. I like to come in here because I haven't been here in the original game. We didn't have this in beta. At least I don't remember it, but there's a little chosen area back here. And I don't know what encounter was here. It looks like it was one of our dungeon crawls. And we were originally going to have so much more chosen architecture, and we never got around to it. So I was happy to see this, that they used more of it. But dude, this room is so sinister. This must have been the boss fight, right? Open area, sinister lighting, must be a boss. Tickles me. I love all the glows, guys. That's must be why I like Razor Chroma so much. I love the bling. Yep, big open game area. Just hit the autosave. Some video game tropes will never die. But I love all the stylized art. That's one thing I would like to get into Ember is that sense of stylized art. Even, it stands the test of time so much more than anything else. I want people to look at a screenshot and know that it's Ember, just like you could look at a screenshot and know that it's Firefall. That was actually a goal. That was a goal when we made Firefall, and it's my goal for Ember as well. Yeah, Anita. Realistic. Everything looks realistic now. They're pushing that so hard, and it's so expensive to make stuff photorealistic, and it takes so much time. And what does it really buy you? So you can look like everybody else, every other AAA game out there. Except if you're an indie and you try to do photoreal, you're not going to be able to match like a 600-person art team, right? Between contractors and core team. So I think that's a losing proposition. I think you're much better off sticking with something visually distinct and stylized. All right, we're coming up on a location many of you love. Thump Dump. There's the dump. And I think we had iranas in there, right? Like junkyard dogs. And the thumper. Many memories. This has been there's so many memories here, and it's been such a powerful reminder of why we're doing this. We set out to make the spiritual successor to Firefall, and we're adding to it. We've got waifus, we've got mechs and things like that. But those were kind of things that were planned for the original Firefall, anyways. We were supposed to have kaiju, we were supposed to have mechs, and we never got around to it. This is where the thumpers would take off. You remember them shooting up here? And you get these great vista views. You could just see really far. Really reminds me of Crimson Desert. I think Crimson Desert draws further than we do, right? And so my goal is to get the view distance out even further, to go beyond what Firefall did. And if you have a top end system, you should be able to see all the way, right? Yep, the elevator. And if you have a low end system, you should be having fun too. Right now, we're running at about 114 frames per second. And if I turn off the bells and whistles, and you can get this to about 140 steady state, and I think we can do better. I think I've had this up to like if there's like nothing on screen, right? It's running just our basic meshlet pipe. You're getting about 1,200 frames a second. So there's a lot of headroom, and I think there's a lot of room to grow. And I've seen this area as fast as 300 frames per second, which I'd like to get to, and it slows down when I. It's not all the stuff you see. Strangely enough, you know what's the slowest part right now of the engine? The ground, just this simple ground, not even the vegetation. It's because of the texture layer system. It's quite expensive to draw the texture layer system the way Firefall had it. And I've actually run Firefall on this very machine using the Steam client, and the Melding Wars released a server emulator. I think they call it PIP. I don't know what it stands for. And you can run Firefall on this system. And without VSync, I turned it all off. I let it run as fast as it could. I was only getting 140 frames a second. And I was like, that is unusual. Firefall was not optimized using modern hardware. It's running on DX9. It's not a meshlet based renderer. It uses a straight polygon draw system. So I think it's not taking advantage of higher end hardware um, the way that we do. So I think we've got some headroom. My goal, like I said, is I want to hit 200 frames here on this system. I want to buy us a little headroom so when we add the animations and stuff, that we get a decent frame rate without any upscaling. I hate Unreal's blurriness. I really, really hate it. I hate its dinginess. They use a different tone mapper than we do. We use AGX, they use ACES. And, that's why every Unreal game sort of looks the same. And I like the crispness. I'll even turn anti-aliasing off sometimes because I prefer that over any type of blurring whatsoever. Now, there's a reason why modern game engines blur everything, and that's because modern techniques like the way some shadows work, you see some crawling there on the shadows. That's called a form of temporal aliasing, and so they have to get those photorealistic graphics. You never want to see that, and so they end up smearing everything in order to blur and hide it, and it just causes this sort of Vaseline look. Oh, equalizer. That's interesting. So Crimson Desert renders to SVG? Really? I want to see that AMA. Maybe that's a technique we can borrow. That's the other fascinating thing about AI is that if a developer has talked about a technique somewhere on the web, AI can probably reproduce it. It's in its training data. AI is very good at techniques that have been done. So there's stuff in here that we've learned from Horizon Zero Dawn and other games which have published papers, and we've adopted it for our engine just based on their SIGGRAPH talk, right? Just based on their game developer talk. Yeah, here we go, Sertao. I'm trying to go to places that haven't been shown yet in the prior chief chats. I'll go to the familiar places too, but I also want to just roam around here. I didn't play much in Sertao. I stuck because I was in beta, right? So I stuck mostly to New Eden because that's what we were working on the most. Yeah, we don't have a distant shadow solution yet, Neo. This is standard cascading shadow maps, which really should dial in. We shouldn't be drawing them as far out as we do, but we need to have a virtual shadow system for farther out terrain. Otherwise, the shadows just stop at a certain distance, which looks very jarring. What is holding the melding wall back? I don't know. Oh, well, in the lore, it was the arc light. The arc light generators were still powered, and it was enough to form a bubble around Fortaleza. And so that's what was holding back the melding. We do have the melding, the shader complete with the lightning flashes. Come on, flash. Flash for me. It's not going to do it, is it? Oh, there we go. Uh, but actually, our melding is fully transparent. I think the melding in Firefall was just a masked opacity. I'm sorry if this is too technical. I'll try to dial it back. Where it blocks everything, but you can see transparent edges. That's about it. What was this forested area called? Does anybody remember? Like the redwoods? This is our redwood zone. That's what I used to call it. So one thing I did was I implemented volumetrics, and I'll show you a little later an example of that. And so we could have potentially our terraforming wall be not just this one sort of like polygonal spline where it just looks like a sheet of glass, but we can actually have a volumetric effect on that. So I want to play with that, see what we can do. But yeah, this was really crazy. The data formats for Firefall are not like any other game. They're very complex because of the id Tech stuff. So this was very, very difficult for the AI to do. And I had to kind of guide it based on what I knew, what we did in Firefall. I'd be like, well, I know that this is id Tech 5, and this is the way we did it in theory. And it's like knowing that, can you look at the data formats again and kind of figure it out? And that worked. But it was a painstaking trial and error process. Yeah, I'm actually going to borrow Niagara's structure for particles. That might be too heavyweight. One thing is we don't have to be a general purpose engine. We just need the features that we need for Ember. So I don't have a whole bunch of shaders in here. I use basically what's called an Uber shader, where only what the game needs is contained in one shader, and that eliminates the hitching problem that you see in so many Unreal games. Because they're always sort of like loading and compiling shaders or and paging shaders in and out. We don't have that. Everything we need is in one shader that's always loaded, so you're never hitting that sort of, oh, I need this, I need that. And I think that's the way I'd like to go. It's like, okay, we have these effects, and that's it. We can stretch them really far, and we can reuse them and repurpose them and parameterize them and get a lot of mileage out of them. And that way we should avoid the nightmarish hitch problems that Unreal tends to have. Even today, they've been doing a lot of work on it, a lot of improvements. I'm sure it will get better, but for what we have available right now in Unreal, we would be hitching if we tried to do something complex like this with a lot of different materials. So this map, believe it or not, is only about 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers, and that is astounding because I think the last map we did in the demo was, Neo, do you remember what it was? Was it a 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer map or a 1 by 1? I don't remember, but it was it was not too far off from this. And I joked that I failed with the crystite. I tried so hard to get the crystite effect rendering, but I couldn't quite figure it out, and all we have is shards of glass. But it's kind of cool that we have glass. It's all refractive. Ah, look at this. What was this area? This is new to me. But there's just so much stuff here. Yeah, this taught me that we can really make maps feel bigger just by putting more points of interest in them. This area is pretty cool. I like it. I don't know what happened here. Looks like some really involved encounter area. But I just love the look of all this stuff, man. Okay, I'm lost. Where am I going? Let's go over here. Oh, that's the melting wall. Let's go over here. So another advantage of meshlet technology is we might be able, it depends on how performant it is, to get an LOD that you don't really see much pop in at all. There's because we're meshlet based, which chops it. You know how I said that Mega Chunks chops this into like 3, 4 sections? Well, our meshlet pass goes over this and actually chops it finer. So this is probably made up of like, I don't know, a couple hundred clusters of polygons. They're like 20 tries each, right? And it divides it up on the GPU in parallel to render. So it's a modern, fast way of rendering a lot of dense polygonal geometry. And you can actually use that with what's called a DAG graph, directed acyclic graph, to generate LODs on the fly that are very effective. So I want to explore that next for our Ember terrain. But there is a cost to it. And like I said, I'm always worried about performance. That's the other thing I did is I did performance counters early, and the AI tracked all the performance every time it made a change. It would measure performance again. So if we ever hit like something that hosed our performance, we would roll it back immediately and try a different approach. Oh, that's a great view. Look at that. That's a screenshot. Love that one. I'm spending a lot more time in Sir Tao than I have in the other demos. They really added so much to this after I left. Oh, what is this? A little cave or something? What's in here? Oh, just a tunnel. I think the world team, the terrain team, did such a great job. Oh, we're in Dredge. This is like a real memory-inducing location for me because this was like the end of the gameplay walkthrough demo. We did an announcement where we had this whole place under invasion, and it's one of the first places we built, and I was so worried it was gone. That's why I was asking you guys in chat, do you know if Dredge is still around? Because I couldn't find it. The map is so packed. I actually spent a day looking for it and couldn't find it, and then I finally found it. It made me happy. So we came down here, and this is where we teased the Titan encounter. We had a three-legged tripod creature up there, and that was something that you had to get on this turret and fight at the end of the demo. Because we were supposed to have these massive kaiju-like features in the world, but we never got around to it. And that's why in Ember, you know, the kaiju are happening early. Like, we want that in right away. All right, let's see. Let's go over here. Oh, you did? Sakaji? You did screenshots for that archway? Yeah, it's a great place. Edge of the map over here. So one thing that I'll point out is we're not just in Firefall. We're in Ember. We're in the planet. Out there is an ocean, and that is actually the planet being rendered. And off in the distance, do you see those mountains out there? That's the planet geometry. So we're actually on a planet the size of Earth's moon. And this area, this 4 by 4 kilometer area, is actually really super tiny. It's really super tiny compared to the rest of the planet. So we're not just drawing all the terrain here. We're actually rendering the entire planet too, or at least the portions you can see. And so there's, how one complaint we had in the demo is, they're saying, oh my gosh, there's just, the map just ends, it doesn't continue, there's no fake horizon. Every game's got a fake horizon. How come you don't have a fake horizon? Well, I was like, I'll give you something better than a fake horizon. I'll give you an entire planet. How's that? So that's one thing that we have that Firefall doesn't, is an entire planet. Although Firefall, again, was supposed to have an entire planet, in our level editor, you would actually check out the Earth, and then you would make changes to it. But in the game, we never did the planet. Okay, this should bring back memories. This is TransHub. Some cool ships up here. And I know there's this huge underground area in TransHub, and I haven't been able to find it. I don't think it's in here, no. But if you remember, there's like a couple of levels underneath TransHub. I think it still holds up. I think it still looks really good. If the textures were at their max resolution, this would look really good. I know it's not in there because I've got in there to try it before. Is it in here? I'm not sure. Nope. I can clip underneath. Let's see. Whoa, what is this? Good suggestion, Leandry. Oh, there was a shuttle here, right? Does this not remind you of Star Citizen? When you take the trams? For those of you who play Star Citizen, this really reminds me of Star Citizen. Except the tram would be real and go somewhere, like the hangars. All right, we found one underground area. I know there's more. But it's just so cool. So many memories. This is the lake area where there were 3 waterfalls, if you remember that. We don't have the waterfalls here, but we do have the lake. but there used to be 3 major waterfalls here. And over here is a favorite bridge of mine. I love this bridge, and I think it looks really good in more advanced materials. I just love the look of this thing. It's over here. Is it a cafe? I don't remember what was here. But this is inspiring. This is why we're doing this. And to have this back as a guide so we can refer to it and for the feeling, I think that's just huge. It's going to be so useful. Whoa, there's a vehicle bay. What do we call those before? Quads? Yeah, it would be cool. Maybe we should release a bunch of screenshots from this. My favorite bikes. Not this one. What the Locust was my favorite with the round headlight. Okay, there's another trans hub area. All right, let's go over here. I remember spending a lot of time at Trans Hub, saying hi to Nostromo. Now there's terrain here, but we didn't stop the ocean, so the ocean's bleeding into here. But there's actually stuff underneath here. And then up here is another PvP area. Do you remember this place? What was this called? I remember getting killed here so many times. It was brutal. PvP in Firefall was very fast paced. If you were in beta, you remember PvP in Firefall. Man, there's some really nice vistas here. Oh, there's the rock hand. I always love stumbling across that again. Yeah, that's why I paused PvP. I didn't close it. I did the same strategy that we did on WoW, which is I wanted to focus on shipping PvE first before we got into the PvP aspects because it was splitting the team's time. And honestly, we were tuning the abilities and the weapons for PvP, and it was making PvE feel worse because what works for PvP and what works for PvE are two entirely different beasts. And so I wanted to make sure we had a really strong PvE experience. All right, let's go to everyone's favorite location, at least it's Faye's favorite location. The home of Terra Motormouth, Sunken Harbor. Here we are. This is where the bike race was. This always reminded me of, you know how you go to those aquariums and they have sculpted entrances like this and tanks everywhere. It always reminded me of like one of those ocean museums or ocean displays. Home gang, Sunken Harbor open PvP map right here. Still looks good, man. We did a lot with modular pieces. A lot of this stuff are modular pieces that get reused, and that's encouraging because doing modular stuff now is in some ways easier than it was before. I think we could stretch it a lot and get a lot of content out of it. But yeah, the this is so encouraging because we could do all this. We could do over 1 million lines of code in just 5 months. What can we do with the game then? Because a renderer is much more complicated than the actual gameplay logic. So it's very encouraging for what that means for the pace of development. And I think you're going to find that we're going to be able to drop code and features much, much faster. The issue is art, that, art is still a human task, at least for characters and hero objects and design. That still takes human artists. I'm not opposed to generative AI because I think it's liberating for artists. Nobody wants to be. We literally had an artist that all they did was plants, right? These little shrubs. We had shrub artists and we literally had rock artists. It's like, okay, you're in charge of rocks. And not only is that super demoralizing for the artist, it doesn't leverage their talent. It doesn't put their talent in the right place. So I think generative AI is a good tool to free you up so that you don't have to dedicate people to plants and rocks, and you can put them on other things like characters and hero objects, things that really impact the game more. So I don't mind if we start generating like a tree or rocks or that type of thing, or even cliff pieces. That's not a big deal. I think that that's actually good for artists. That frees up, the artist to do other things. One thing that this has proven is that I mean, it costs thousands of dollars to build this engine, right? Because we still have to pay AI costs. We have to do we have to pay for the tokens that are being used. And we generate a lot of tokens when we do millions of lines of code. So this was, I don't know, thousands of dollars over the past 5 months. and, but really, with the amount that you get, even at thousands of dollars, building all of this in Firefall took us 2 to 3 years to get the base engine running. And it cost us, I went through the math, it cost us, adjusted for today's dollars, about $5 million. So we've gotten $5 million in 5 months for just a couple grand. So, that part of the equation is much more favorable to the indie dev. But the other part is, oh, dude, look at that. The other part is the art, artists still need to eat. Can't have starving artists, right? And so while I don't think we need the same budget that we were thinking before, we still need an art budget. And that's going to be the real holdup here, right? I think we're going to deliver on these features really fast, and we can use Firefall placeholder art. It does limit us to video updates because of copyright reasons. I cannot distribute this stuff into a build, but we could prototype here to our heart's content. We can tune our jetpacks finally to fit the terrain, because I think with how open the test levels were, it was really difficult to get a sense of scale and to tune the jetpacks and gliding properly. Now we can do it because we could prototype it all of it in here. We can drop you video updates. We can do chief chats and show you everything and play the game in this level. But there's only so far we can do that before we have to do Ember assets. So we still need an art budget. And so I did reduce the size of the packs, sorry, the price of the packs by 50%. We're doing a 50% off sale. We're going to close those out. So if you want to support us, I think the first thing would be subscriptions. If you renew your subscription, and we have stuff coming for subscribers soon, that's going to be a little more interesting, I think. And we're going to be revitalizing our subs, and We also, are encouraging anybody who wants to, who's encouraged by this, who sees all the progress we've made, to upgrade their pack or to buy a new pack. 50% off is a good deal. We're going to close those packs out. We're going to go with a simpler set of perks for newcomers because we're ready to grow the base again. We weren't accepting backers for over a year. We're going to accept backers again, and because now we have stuff to show, we have stuff to talk about, and I think people will see as we deliver these updates much more rapidly, these video updates, that that the game is not just alive and kicking, but is making tremendous progress at a very fast rate, code wise. And I have to say code because we don't have an art budget. There's literally, between the expenses, between the AI and the servers and everything, there's not, and just, general expenses, there's not enough to go out and get Toshi back, for example. And Toshi is not charging an arm and a leg. He's being reasonable, but he does need to put bread on the table. And so that way we can get art back. We could even hire some AI artists to do our rocks and our shrubs. That would be good and also very fast. So yeah, I'm encouraging people, if they like what they see, if they like everything we've shown this weekend, to come back to a subscription, come back to a pack, get them while we still have them, because we're going to close out this round. But I wanted the emphasis just to be on this demo. I mention it because I have to, because I'm being real with you guys. This is what it takes. But I want the focus. I just want to just enjoy this. This weekend, I don't know. It's such an emotional moment to see all this and to see that we have an engine that can do everything that Firefall does, plus some more, right? And I think that that's really encouraging. Like those clouds, they're not in Firefall. They were just sprites. Here, they're real volumetric clouds. They're not as stylized as I want them to be yet. But a feature that I did just in, I don't know, this was like an hour or two of AI to get this hooked up where we can actually pilot the dropship. Which I thought was pretty cool. And this is already client server. This is already being networked. And it's driven by Jolt physics. So this is a physics-based thruster system like Star Citizen. So you're actually firing thrusters when you turn. Obviously, we're not rendering anything, but the physics is there underneath. Little camera system built in. And unfortunately, the dropship is still too slow. Oh, wait, let's buzz Thump Dump. Because I love all the detail here. It's just tremendous amount of cool stuff up here. Oh, am I going to clip? Going to clip? Yep, a little bit. All right, the dropship isn't fast enough to show you the last thing. Remember a while ago, I promised you guys home? Home is the orbital station in space. And you were supposed to initiate missions either from home or from the open playable area, which is going to be our version of New Eden, right? And you were supposed to be able to sort of like drop into mission areas onto the planet, different hotspots of the war or any sort of kaiju sign. So in order to do that, I had to have a little bit more than just a map. So I'm gonna. There's the pop in. We'll fix that. We can use modern techniques to fix that versus Firefall's techniques. But let me speed up here. I need to go to several hundred kilometers per per hour to achieve this. You start to see the stars. There's the nebula I told you about. If I look back, look at how small the firefall map is. That's all of firefall right there. In order to generate all the terrain for this planet, it had to be procedurally generated because we didn't have enough satellite data at the resolution we needed to like just use the moon or something. But it's just a dot, man. Compared to the mountain, it's just a dot. I had to exaggerate all the mountains just for that stylized look. So in the video, we only showed jump cuts because it would take too long. But here I can show you that you can actually fly around the entire space. And this is the planet Ember, right? You've got the lava flows. There should be ice flows. Do we have the ice flows? I don't see the ice flows. So you can come all the way down here. Now, obviously, we don't have biomes or individual textures on the terrain for the planet. It's not really necessary that we have that. We just have to have an orbital view. So I didn't put much time into it, but it's something that when the mission areas happen, we can place them on the planet. We can spawn them in. No load screens, except maybe a server handoff. And you can actually just fly around the planet. It's pretty cool. And this nebula is actually volumetric. Remember I told you we could make the melding a real 3D object in the world? That's what the nebula is. I can actually fly into here. So it has real volume. It's not just layered sprites or anything. I thought that was pretty cool too. Reminds me of how we had the melding in space with the arc light. And that's actually a pretty good time. Oh, we're far away too. We can get really far away. I'm going at like light speed right now. This is really fast. Zoom. All right, I gotta slow it way down here because I'm going to show you the one final thing for this chief chat. A Z layer on the nebula? Where? There are some. We don't have full ordered transparency yet. Oh, I see it with the oceans. Yeah, what you see is the ocean fighting with the nebula. But that's not hard to fix in space because you don't have to do ordered sorting for that. You can just do compositing. So that's something that we can address. It's just you're not supposed to be out here, guys. This is for my future game after Firefall. I want to make a space game someday with my son. That is not that's not necessary to what we're doing. But I wanted an engine that could do it, so I didn't have to do this again, right? So that's why I decided on a full planetary scale renderer. It's my one little vanity, and with AI, such vanities are affordable because if you build it right from the beginning, it can just handle it. So we don't have to worry about that eating up time. All right, I'm going to slow it way, way down. And I'm going to have to teleport to the next location because it is so tiny. There's literally no way for me to find it on my own. It's going to be like a needle in a haystack because this is a real planetary size object. Asking the AI to move me. Just make it bigger. Make it really big. There we go. She's flying again, no longer crashed. It is the Arclight restored in all her glory. Probably my favorite ship design ever. It reminds me of a cross between Alien Sulaco and the Yamato from Space Cruiser Yamato. I really love it. And then I try to pose it to match the poster. So this is where home would be, right? Where the arc light is now. Imagine that that's the space station that we've been talking about, where you start off and you take drop ships down to the planet. And we can do that now. We can get on here, we can drop on down to the planet, and it's all good, man. We have the technology, we have the engine for it. To do this in Unreal is kind of crazy. It would take a lot of code, and it wouldn't quite run the way we wanted to. It would be a lot of custom stuff, and we'd be fighting Unreal the whole way to do it. So that's something we avoid with this. So that is another advantage of having our own custom engine that's AI driven. I had to add the lights because the model is low poly, even in Firefall, and the textures are low res, so I just added a bunch of window lights here so you can get a sense of scale. But this is now my wallpaper right here, this shot. And if you like wallpaper like this, I can make it freely available. I can't put it for download on our site or anything, but as fan artwork, I could just drop it into chat and you guys can have this if you like. Go along with your Firefall poster. All right. Um, that wraps up a very, very successful weekend for us. We've talked to a lot of people. We've garnered a huge amount of interest on X with the work that we're doing. Uh, our haters are seething. They are so triggered and posting nonstop. Um, they're saying that the video they're claiming that the video was fake AI, that it wasn't a real engine. There's some really crazy theories out there. Because they don't want the game to succeed. It was never that they were concerned about the project or a consumer rights issue or anything like that. They just didn't want the project to succeed. They want to stop it at all costs. And so when we come out with something like this, their reaction wasn't positive. It wasn't skepticism. It was outright hate. It was outright wanting this to go away because it fights their narrative. It destroys their narrative. So it made me very happy, and the community reaction has been so warm and so welcoming and so positive that it really has revitalized the entire crew. I was talking to Faye, Ronan, everybody. It's just such a positive feeling. It feels like coming home. It feels like coming home and being with you guys again in a really positive way, and that really, that accelerates development. That makes us want to do more. That makes us really hyped to see this through. And the emotional support is priceless. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you for such a warm reception over this weekend. And that's why we wanted to do 4 Chief Chats. And I wanted to thank Ronan and Faye and the mods and everybody who attended for giving us your weekend, hanging out with us. So many of you have come to multiple Chief Chats to support us, and that means a lot. So thank you all very much. My heart goes out to you. This has been such an inspiration. And we're getting back on mission. We are moving 93 times faster on code. I want to move faster on art. Hopefully, with more support, we could do that, and opening it up to others, we could do that. But we aren't going to stop on the code. We'll just do it in here. We'll do it with Firefall assets for now. Do video updates, and then when we get the art in, over time, it all transforms into Ember. Thank you very much for your weekend and your time. Really appreciate it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm in chat every day, usually in the mornings. I also check in at night. I've been doing that for a month now, or maybe 6 weeks. I'll be here, and so will everybody else. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to Faye for the closeout and to Ronan for you know what.
Well, it was great to see everybody here again. And we're back, y'all. Ronan, you ready to take it away?
I am. It is super exciting to see everybody here. Thanks for coming again. This has been kind of a long weekend as we jump in and do 4 chief chats in 48 hours. It's been really fun to do. Remember, if you have more questions, more ideas, things like that, let us know. Keep in mind, the contest for the name of the engine will be coming up soon. We will reach out to you all when there's more information to share. So get your minds working on that. Be ready. Get creative. Okay, get creative. I don't want to see anything boring. I want you to dig deep. Come up with something that is both attached to the history of Firefall, the history of Ember, maybe something lore related. Get interesting. I believe it's in you. It's in each and every one of you. Okay, so you know what's up. Until next time. Dig!